This is an emergency broadcast issued by the National Public Safety Alert System. Please remain calm and stay tuned for further information. Updates will be provided as more details become available. Good evening. For those just joining, we are monitoring an ongoing public health incident currently affecting multiple urban areas. Initial reports describe an unidentified viral outbreak leading to erratic and aggressive behavior in some individuals. Authorities are urging the public to remain indoors while investigations continue. This situation is still developing, and we are working closely with emergency services to bring you verified information as soon as possible. If you are in an affected area, please adhere to any shelter-in-place orders issued by local officials. Avoid unnecessary travel and do not approach individuals displaying signs of illness. We want to emphasize that panic is the greatest danger at this moment. Misinformation is spreading rapidly. While social media reports have described violent incidents, we urge you to rely only on official sources. Law enforcement agencies and medical experts are handling the situation. At this time, public transit services remain operational, though some routes have been modified in response to localized disturbances. If you must travel, exercise caution and remain aware of your surroundings. Some areas have reported temporary blackouts due to heightened demand on emergency services. Authorities are working to restore all essential utilities. Again, if you are experiencing an emergency, please dial your local emergency number. Do not engage with anyone behaving erratically. Law enforcement is actively responding to all reported disturbances. In the interest of keeping the public informed, we will now take a live update from a correspondent station at an emergency press conference in Washington, D.C.
We are aware of the incidents occurring in major metropolitan areas. At this time, we can confirm that medical teams are responding, and federal agencies are coordinating to tame the situation. We strongly advise citizens to remain indoors and avoid unnecessary travel. There is no evidence to support claims of widespread violence or societal collapse. These rumors are unsubstantiated. Our emergency response units are working around the clock to address all concerns. More information will be provided in the next scheduled briefing.
You just heard a statement from the National Public Health Task Force. While officials urge calm, we understand that many of you have questions. We will continue providing updates and verifying information as it becomes available. We have received multiple unconfirmed reports of emergency room overcrowding and increased law enforcement presence in certain areas. If you are in a location under an active shelter-in-place order, do not attempt to leave. If you are outside, seek immediate shelter. For listeners just tuning in, this is a developing situation. A public health incident is currently being addressed in multiple cities, leading to temporary movement restrictions and emergency service interruptions. While there have been reports of erratic behavior in affected individuals, experts advise that this is likely the result of high fever or neurological symptoms related to the illness. Again, we urge everyone to remain inside and limit contact with individuals showing signs of severe disorientation or aggression. If someone in your household is exhibiting unusual symptoms, contact emergency services immediately. To ensure public safety, the following major highways have been partially closed or rerouted to accommodate emergency response teams. Interstate 95 in the Northeast Corridor, the I-10 freeway in Southern California, U.S. Route 66 in select regions of the Midwest. Expect delays in urban centers as authorities prioritize medical transport and law enforcement deployments. If you are on the road, tune into your local emergency frequency for real-time updates. We are beginning to receive first-hand accounts from affected areas. We have a brief, verified transmission from a hospital worker in Chicago describing current conditions in their facility.
We don't know what's happening. People are coming in with bites, lacerations. Some of them are conscious, but they aren't acting right. We lost power for a few minutes, and when the backup generators kicked in, half the patients were gone. Nurses are barricading the doors we need.
This is the National Public Safety Alert System. If you are just tuning in, stay indoors and keep all doors and windows secured. Emergency services are responding to a developing situation across multiple regions. We are receiving new updates by the minute, and I will relay them to you as soon as they are verified. At this time, law enforcement is working to contain several public disturbances in major metropolitan areas. If you are located near these areas, avoid all non-essential travel. Authorities are urging people to remain inside and lock their doors. Our latest report confirms that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has classified this as an active biological threat. The exact nature of the illness remains unknown, but appears to be highly contagious and affects neurological function. Symptoms include extreme confusion and aggression, unresponsiveness to pain, unnatural physical movements, loss of speech or coherent thought. If you or someone you know is displaying any of these symptoms, do not engage. Quarantine yourself and wait for emergency personnel. We now have confirmation that multiple National Guard units have been deployed to affected zones. A nationwide state of emergency is under consideration, with local authorities already enacting curfews and restricting movement in high-risk areas. The Department of Homeland Security has issued a formal statement, urging all citizens to comply with law enforcement and emergency orders. If you are outside, return home immediately. Hospitals in affected regions are at capacity, and medical personnel are requesting volunteers to assist in triage efforts. We strongly discourage traveling to hospitals unless absolutely necessary. If you require medical attention for non-critical issues, stay put and await further instructions. We are receiving additional confirmed reports of power failures in New York City, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Several major transmission towers are offline. The cause remains uncertain, but officials suspect widespread grid failure due to the ongoing emergency response. Public transportation is now suspended in affected regions. If you are stranded, find shelter immediately. Many urban centers are reporting blocked roadways, abandoned vehicles, and emergency checkpoints restricting entry and exit. For those listening, here are the latest survival directives issued by emergency management teams. Remain indoors. Lock all entry points. Stockpile food and water for at least 3 days. Avoid making unnecessary noise or drawing attention. If you encounter an infected individual, do not engage. Move away quietly and securely barricade yourself. Authorities will deploy assistance as soon as possible. Do not risk traveling at this time. For those still tuning in, we must be honest. This situation is deteriorating rapidly. The CDC has lost communication with multiple research centers. National Guard units have ceased updates in certain areas. Law enforcement is struggling to maintain control. This is no longer just an emergency. It is a crisis. We are receiving unconfirmed reports that major cities are no longer safe. While we will not engage in speculation, we strongly urge listeners to prepare for the possibility of long-term disruption. Government officials have stopped broadcasting from Washington, D.C. Their last transmission encouraged all survivors to remain hidden and avoid unnecessary risks. If you are still receiving this transmission, listen carefully. Do not trust the roads. Do not go to hospitals. Do not open the door for anyone. We will continue broadcasting as long as possible. Remember, this is not the end, but it may be the beginning of something we cannot control. If this transmission is reaching you, know that you're not alone. Keep this channel locked in. Subscribe to stay ahead, because the moment you stop listening might be the moment you stop surviving. This is the National Public Safety Alert System. If you are hearing this, you are one of the few still connected. Government emergency broadcasts are beginning to fail in certain regions. This may be our final official transmission. We urge you to listen carefully. The Department of Defense has declared an uncontained biological event across mobile states, with law enforcement overwhelmed. Martial law is being enacted in key regions. This means all civilian movement is restricted. Anyone caught looting or engaging in violence will be dealt with immediately. Emergency shelters are at maximum capacity. Multiple state governments are now silent. The last communication from the governor of California was a simple directive: save yourselves. We are on our own. We have received an unconfirmed report from an embedded journalist in New York City. Fires everywhere. No police, no sirens, just them. I watched a man run for a full block before they swarmed him. People tried to help, but there were too many. There's no order anymore. It's just survival. We have also lost contact with officials in Chicago, Houston, and Miami. If you are still in these cities, find shelter and stay hidden. Repeat, do not attempt evacuation unless absolutely necessary. The roads are compromised. Airports and train stations have ceased operations. For those in smaller towns and rural areas, you may still have time to escape. Military evacuation points are still active in the following locations: Fort Carson, Colorado, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. If you can reach these locations safely, move quickly. If you cannot, hunker down and fortify your position. The White House released a last statement before going dark. It reads, "To those listening, know that we fought for you until the end, but this is beyond containment. Do not look for help. Do not wait for rescue. Stay strong, stay hidden, and most importantly, stay alive." This is the last message from the U.S. government. There will be no further orders, no more emergency plans. We are on our own. If you're still hearing this, then you are still alive. I don't know where you are. Maybe you're barricaded in your home. Maybe you're hiding in a basement with strangers. Maybe you're out there, running. Wherever you are, you need to understand something. The world you knew is gone. The rules you lived by, gone. The safety nets, gone. The government, gone. It's just us now. The survivors, we don't know how long these stations will hold out. But we'll keep broadcasting as long as we can. Listen carefully. Never travel alone. If you're with a group, stay together. If you're alone, find someone you can trust. Stay silent. Noise attracts them. If you have to move, move quietly. Stockpile supplies. Water, food, batteries, medicine, whatever you can carry. Weapons. If you don't have one, find one. If you can't fight, learn fast. Avoid cities. The dead own them now. Most importantly, if someone you know is bitten, do not hesitate. This is possibly the last government emergency broadcast. If you are still out there, if you are still alive, do not give up. The world is gone, but you are still here. Survive. Adapt. Endure. We will continue transmitting as long as possible. This is not the end, but it is the beginning of something new. This is the National Public Safety Alert System signing off. This is the Emergency Broadcast Network. If you can still hear this, you are among the last pockets of survivors. The world as we knew it is over. But that doesn't mean we are. We're shifting the focus now. The government is none. The military is scattered. That means survival is in our hands. And the first rule, knowledge is everything. We've been receiving transmissions, not from officials, not from emergency responders, but from you, the survivors. This first one comes from a man sheltering in an old church outside of Houston, Texas. His transmission was faint, but we managed to catch his words. I don't know if anyone's out there. I don't know if this will reach anyone. We've barred the doors, blocked the windows. There are 8 of us here. We take turns keeping watch. The dead pass by sometimes, but they don't seem to notice us as long as we keep quiet. We have food for a week, maybe less. If anyone hears this, tell us what to do. We don't know what to do. If you are still in a group, if you still have shelter, you are already ahead of most. The biggest mistake people are making right now is moving without a plan. If you're listening from a fortified location, stay there. The biggest risk right now isn't just the infected, it's the chaos. People are desperate. The roads are a war zone. If you can avoid moving, avoid it. Fortify ration and wait for the situation to shift. We will continue gathering intelligence on safe routes and possible strongholds. This next one came from a woman who tried to evacuate Los Angeles when the first outbreaks hit. She recorded her message from a car radio before the signal cut out. We left the city 2 days ago. It was supposed to be safe. We followed the government's evacuation orders. I don't know if they lied to us, or if it just fell apart faster than they thought. We got trapped on the highway, thousands of cars. Nowhere to go. We heard screams. Then gunfire. We turned around, but it was already too late. The road behind us was blocked too. We ran. I don't even know how we made it out. But if anyone hears this, don't follow the highways. Don't follow the evacuation routes. They're death traps. If you are still trying to evacuate major cities, do not take the main roads, interstates, highways, and bridges are all compromised. Instead, use secondary roads and back streets, abandoned railway tracks if possible, sewers or tunnels for short-term escape, but be aware of limited exits. Above all, avoid crowded areas. The more people gathered, the higher the risk. It only takes one to bring the whole place down. There's something else survivors are reporting. It's not just the infected, it's the people still alive. Panic changes people. Fear makes them do things they never thought they'd do. In some areas, survivors are turning on each other. Looting, ambushing, killing for supplies. One transmission we received from a man in Pennsylvania was simple. Just 7 words. The infected aren't the only monsters now. Humanity is breaking apart. But listen to me, not everyone is lost. You will find people who still have honor, who still have decency. Find them. Stay with them. But be careful. Trust has to be earned now. If you're listening to this, your only focus should be surviving the next 24 hours. Do not travel at night. The infected are unpredictable in the dark. You are easier to hear, easier to corner. Secure your location. If you are inside a building, barricade the entrances. Block windows and eliminate unnecessary noise. Conserve your resources. Water, food, ammunition, treat everything like it's the last you'll ever find. Never stay in the open. If you are exposed, you are vulnerable. Find cover, find shelter, find safety. Know your exits, no matter where you are. Always have at least 2 escape routes planned. If you don't, you are already dead. The world is not gone. It is different. It is dangerous. But as long as there are survivors, as long as you are listening, there is still hope. Stay alive. Keep fighting. Find others. And remember, this is not the end. We will keep transmitting. We will keep listening. You are not alone. This is the Emergency Broadcast Network, signing off for now. If you are listening to this, you are still here, and that means you still have a chance. Reports continue to come in. The cities are lost, the highways are war zones, but there are survivors who are organizing. Not everyone is running. Some are holding their ground. We're calling them strongholds. These aren't government safe zones. Those don't exist anymore. These are civilian-built, survivor-led, self-sustaining. Some are inside fortified buildings, hospitals, warehouses, old bunkers. Others have taken over farmland, small towns, even abandoned prisons. A few have been spotted on ships staying offshore, waiting out the worst of it. They are small, scattered, but they are our best bet for long-term survival. We don't have eyes everywhere, but these are the strongholds we know exist. The ironworks. A group has taken control of an abandoned steel mill. Reinforced walls, supplies, but only taking in armed survivors. Camp Redwood. An old hunting lodge deep in the forest. Hard to reach, but low infected activity. Supplies unknown. The carrier, a military ship taken over by civilians. Mobile, but low on fuel and refusing new entries. These places exist, but listen carefully. Not every stronghold is safe. We have received reports that some strongholds are not what they seem. Some refuse to take in new survivors. If you approach, they will see you as a threat. Others have fallen apart from the inside. Panic, hunger, power struggles, and some have been overrun. A transmission from a survivor who made it to the Citadel, an old shopping mall turned into a survivor base, was cut short. His last words, they opened the gates. We let the wrong ones in. It's too late. If you're heading to a stronghold, be sure before you go. Scout from a distance. Watch for signs of life. If something feels off, trust your gut. Your life is worth more than a false promise of safety. A safe stronghold will have clear defenses, barricades guard signs of order. Communication. Some way to speak with outsiders. Radios, signals, even posted messages. Signs of stability. Fires burning, organized patrols, routine activity. A dangerous or failed stronghold will have no movement. A place once full of people, now silent, it's probably overrun. Desperation. Survivors looking half starved, too eager to let you in. Be careful. The smell of decay. If you can smell the dead before you see them, turn back. If you are in a stronghold that feels wrong, get out before it's too late. There's another reality we have to face. The world is leaderless. Governments have collapsed. Law enforcement is either dead or fighting for their own survival. The military, scattered, divided, some helping, some not. That means new leaders are rising. Some of them are good, brave survivors stepping up, organizing, protecting others. And some are not. Reports are coming in of warlords, self-proclaimed kings of the apocalypse, using fear and violence to rule. One survivor in Georgia warned us of a group calling themselves the Dominion. Her exact words, they're not rescuing people, they're taking them. If they find you, you're theirs. This is why you need to be careful. The infected are not your only enemy. Survival is about more than just fighting the dead. It's about knowing who to trust among the living. We are past the first wave of chaos. The people still alive now. They are either smart, lucky, or ruthless. If you're hearing this, be one of the smart ones. Move with purpose. Do not wander. Every step you take should have a reason. Find like-minded survivors. People who still have a sense of humanity. Defend yourself. If you haven't already, find a weapon. Learn to use it. Keep listening. Information is your best tool. The more you know, the longer you live. The world belongs to the strong now. Not the cruel, not the violent, but the truly strong. Those who can survive without losing themselves. We are still here. We are still listening. If you are out there, keep fighting. This is the Emergency Broadcast Network. Signing off for now. If you're still out there, still listening, you've already made choices that others didn't. Maybe you ran when they stayed. Maybe you fought when they hesitated. Maybe you did things you're not proud of, but you're still here. I won't sugarcoat this. Surviving the outbreak was just the beginning. What comes next is harder. We have reached the point where supplies are no longer being replenished. The last supermarkets were loaded days ago. The last emergency aid drops were seen weeks ago. The last fresh shipments of food, water, and medicine months ago. What's left is all there is. And that means desperation is rising. People are breaking. Not from infection, but from hunger, from thirst. We're hearing reports of survivors turning on each other for scraps of food. A woman from Chicago sent in a distress call last night. Her group was running low on supplies, so they made a choice. Send 2 people out to scavenge or let everyone starve. They waited 3 days. The 2 never came back. On the 4th day, the group went looking. They found their bodies stripped of everything, gear, weapons, even clothing, left like nothing more than carcasses. Whoever did it, They didn't take the food. They took the people. When the outbreak started, we thought we'd only have to fight the dead. We were wrong. Now, people are stealing. People are killing. People are hunting. And the worst part, some don't even see it as wrong anymore. There are no rules anymore. No laws. So ask yourself, where do you draw the line? Would you steal from a stranger to feed your group? Would you leave someone behind to save yourself? Would you kill someone to protect what's yours? Or have you already? If you're still moving, still looking for a place to settle, be careful who you trust. The longer this goes on, the more people stop thinking like survivors and start thinking like predators. Here's what we know. The Blackout Gang, a group that raids survivor camps under cover of night. They leave no witnesses. The Burning Men, they don't just kill their victims, they make an example out of them. If you see smoke rising, stay far awaiters, or offer you a deal. Join them, or give them everything you own. You don't get a third option. And if you're near the Rockies, survivors have reported an unnamed group with no markings. No insignias, nothing but numbers tattooed on their arms. They don't speak. They don't negotiate. If you see them, run. If you're listening to this, I need you to hear me. It's not too late. You don't have to become them. You don't have to lose yourself. Yes, times are desperate. Yes, you will have to make hard choices. But remember, who you are now is who you will be if we ever rebuild. If you kill, steal, and betray, then what's left when this ends? There's already enough death in this world. Don't let it take your soul, too. This world is hard now. It's cruel, unforgiving. But I need you to remember something. There are still good people out there. There are still survivors who won't let the darkness win. There is still hope if you hold on to it. So keep fighting, keep surviving, and most of all, keep listening. This is the Emergency Broadcast Network signing off for now. There's a moment before every disaster, a pause, a breath, a silence that feels unnatural. That's where we are now. For weeks, our world has been filled with sound. Sirens, gunfire, screams. The relentless, mindless wailing of the infected. That's what survival sounded like. But in the past 24 hours, something has changed. The cities have gone quiet. We're getting reports from survivors. Groups who've stayed hidden in apartment buildings, basements, and tunnels. They're hearing nothing now. No distant gunfire. No movement in the streets. No sounds at all. And I don't know if that should make us feel safey or make us feel afraid. We don't know if this is happening everywhere. But if you're in an area where the infected have suddenly gone quiet, pay attention. Are they migrating? Some survivors have reported huge hordes moving through empty towns, tens of thousands of them, all at once. Are they evolving? The first infected were clumsy, uncoordinated, but newer reports suggest they're moving differently now. Faster, more deliberate. Are they waiting? Some have suggested that the infected are growing still, motionless, like they're conserving energy, like they're listening. I won't speculate. I won't tell you what to believe, but I will tell you this. Do not mistake silence for safety. Reports coming in. Seattle is gone. The last emergency signal was broadcast 36 hours ago. Now, just static. Denver's barricades have been breached. Survivors are fleeing south. If you're in Colorado, do not go west. Dallas unconfirmed. Some say the military has abandoned the city. Some say they never left, but they aren't answering anymore. And New York? New York has been dark for days. If you are near the following locations, there may still be a way out. Chicago O'Hare Airport. Reports indicate military planes were still taking off as of yesterday. No confirmation if it's still active. Atlanta CDC research facility. It was overrun 2 days ago, but survivors claim there's still a hidden safe zone beneath the ruins, somewhere in the Gulf. We don't know if it's true, but multiple survivors swear they've seen boats leaving the coast at night. If you can make it south, watch the water. If none of these are options for you, then listen carefully. Stay where you are. Stay hidden. Stay quiet. The infected may not be making noise, but that doesn't mean they aren't listening. I have to mention something. We've been receiving strange signals. Garbled, half-cut transmissions. It started with a looped message from an old emergency tower in Kansas. The voice was distorted, broken. But we could make out one thing. If you hear the silence, it's already too late. We don't know what it means. But if you're listening to this, and you have any insight, any theory, any knowledge at all, tell us. I know you're tired. I know you're hungry. I know you're scared. But this is not over. Not yet. So if you're still alive, if you're still out there, then keep listening. This is the Emergency Broadcast Network, signing off. For now. If you're traveling, stop. If you're planning to leave your shelter tonight, don't. Something is happening out there, and we don't have enough information to understand it yet. Most of us thought the highways would be our way out, that the open roads would take us somewhere safer. But every hour, new reports come in, and the stories are all the same. Traffic jams stretching for miles, but not a single person inside the cars. Doors open, engines running but no bodies, convoys disappearing, military units heavily armed, well supplied, moving through clear roads 1 minute, then radio silence the next. Survivors saying they saw figures standing on the overpasses, not moving, just watching. We don't know where the missing people are going. We don't know if they ever stop being human. The military did set up safe zones. They did try to contain the spread, but something went wrong. Checkpoint Bravo, last confirmed transmission, holding position. No movement detected. That was 48 hours ago. The entire unit is now MIA. Checkpoint Delta. Survivors report the barricades were abandoned, vehicles still intact. No blood, no bodies. Checkpoint Echo. We received one final transmission before silence. They don't need to run anymore. They're learning. If you find a military checkpoint, do not assume it's still secure. Approach with caution. Look for signs of struggle. Listen before you step into the open, because whatever happened there, it happened fast. For those of you planning to move after dark, ask yourself this. Do you have shelter guaranteed at your destination? Do you have a safe way to see without drawing attention? Do you know what's waiting on the roads? Because here's the thing. Some survivors claim the infected aren't moving as much during the day anymore, that they're waiting, holding still. And when night falls, that's when they start hunting. If you're near the following locations, this may be your only way out. San Diego Naval Base. Last radio contact, reported aircraft still launching. Norfolk, Virginia. Some evac flights may still be airborne. No confirmation if landing sites exist. A secret evacuation route rumored in the Midwest. If anyone has coordinates, send them in. People need to know. If you are anywhere near these locations, move fast. Because once the last plane leaves, once the last pilot disappears into the sky, there will be no more second chances. If you're hearing this, I hope you're safe. I hope you're with people you trust, and I hope you're ready for whatever comes next. But whatever you do, don't stop listening. This is the Emergency Broadcast Network. We're still here. For now. If you're listening to this from inside a major city, you don't have much time. We lost communication with most urban centers within the first 48 hours. Now, every transmission we intercept tells the same story. If you're still in a city, you need to leave. If you're still inside a city, here's what you need to understand. The infected are adapting. They've stopped running blindly. They've started hunting. The safe zones didn't last. If you were waiting for rescue, it's not coming. The tunnels, subways, and underground routes, they belong to them now. There are no strongholds anymore. No police stations, no quarantine zones, no last stands. Just empty streets and the ones still waiting in the dark. Some of you may think it's safe to move because your streets are quiet, because the screams stopped. But silence isn't safety, it's a trap. Survivors who escaped the cities all said the same thing. The infected were there, but they didn't move until we did. They stood still for hours, like they were listening for something. We thought they were gone. Then my friend whispered my name, and they all turned at once. If your city has gone quiet, do not make a sound. For those trying to escape, we've identified 3 possible routes survivors are still using. The frozen highway. Survivors report the cold slows the infected, but food is running low. The old rails. Abandoned rail lines may still be clear, but keep an eye on the tunnels. The Southern River Road. Some survivors claim boats are still making runs. No confirmation if they're still afloat. If you know of any other safe passages, broadcast them. People are still listening. If you're hiding in a high-rise apartment, a skyscraper, or any tall building, get out. The upper floors may seem safer. They're not. Here's why. The infected don't need to climb. They wait. They know you'll have to come down eventually. Fire escapes and stairwells become traps. If they block the exits, you'll never make it out. The smell of decay is rising. Some survivors report the scent alone made them dizzy, weak, confused. A high-rise isn't a fortress. It's a tomb. Get to street level. Move before it's too late. If you're hearing this and you're still inside a major city, you don't have long. Gather supplies. Find an escape road. Go while you still can. Because the cities aren't falling anymore. They've already fallen. This is an emergency broadcast. If you can hear this, you are not alone. We still have survivors reporting in. There are still places left standing, but the window is closing. If you're listening to this, pay attention, because this may be your last chance. For days, we've been tracking safe zones. Some lasted hours, some held for days. Most are gone, but not all of them. If you're traveling to a safe zone, understand this. The highways are a massacre. The military abandoned Checkpoint Bravo near Indianapolis. The last report. The barriers held until they didn't. The I-10 West Road out of Texas. A survivor described it as a parking lot of the dead. The northern border crossings. All but one have gone dark. And the one still open charges a price. Do not assume the roads will be clear. If you're moving, you need to plan for failure. We intercepted a transmission from a survivor near the outskirts of St. Louis. His message was short and disturbing, he said. They don't wander anymore. They just, the way he described dozens of infected standing still in the streets. Not moving, not reacting, until he made a sound, and they all turned at once. They're getting smarter. Or worse, they were never dumb to begin with. For those near coastal regions, there's one last option. We've confirmed boats are still leaving. Seattle. Small fishing boats were seen departing at dawn. No word on where they were heading. Newfoundland. A rogue fleet of civilians reportedly ferrying survivors to remote islands. The Gulf. Unverified reports of cargo ships charging gold, weapons, or gasoline for passage. If you can find a boat, it may be your best shot. If you can't, you need to move inland. For every survivor camp, every so-called sanctuary, there's a story of one that fell. The Denver compound, overrun in 3 days. The Florida evac center, a slaughterhouse. The Montreal quarantine zone, bombed by its own military. A place is only safe until it isn't. If you find refuge, do not get comfortable. Stay alert, stay ready, and have an exit plan. There are no guarantees anymore. No promised rescues. No perfect happens. But if you can hear this, you are still here. And that means you still have a chance. Find your way. Or make one. This is an emergency broadcast. We need to talk about the infection. What you think you know might be wrong. What you haven't been told might get you killed. The government classified the infection as a viral outbreak. That's what they told us. That's what we all believed. but new reports suggest something worse. We received an intercepted transmission from a medical researcher who escaped the CDC facility in Atlanta. Her exact words, "It's not a virus, it's an adaptation." We've all seen it. Some people get bitten and they don't turn. Others do. The military called it immune anomalies. They were wrong. The researcher said it depends on one thing: time. The longer you're exposed, even without a bite, the more likely you'll change. Some people turn in minutes, others days, weeks, and some, they never do. But here's the terrifying part. Even if you don't turn, you might not be the same. She called it the echo effect. Survivors who should have turned but didn't hear things. They sense the infected before they see them. They react before danger is even near. They're faster, stronger, and some, they stop feeling fear. We have no confirmation on how many people this affects. But if you've survived longer than most, if you've seen things before they happened, ask yourself, what did you lose in return? We've been focused on bites. We should have been focused on breath. A military scientist who escaped Wright Patterson Air Force Base left a final warning. It's not just in their mouths. It's in the air. The more of them there are, the heavier it gets. The infection spreads in places where they gather. Underground tunnels, collapsed cities, quarantine zones that fell. If you're in one of those places for too long, you're at risk. And you won't even know until it's too late. The government knew. They knew about the echo effect. They knew the infection was changing. They knew it was never just about bites. And that's why they stopped broadcasting. That's why we're alone. This is the last truth I'll give you tonight. Don't trust old information. Don't assume you're safe just because you're not bitten. And if you've been in a place that feels different, a place where the air is heavy, where your instincts scream at you to leave, listen to that feeling. It's not paranoia, it's survival. This might be the last time you hear from me, and if you're still listening, you need to hear this. The military promised safety. They promised the quarantine zones were secure. They're not. The last functioning station in Houston confirmed Camp Riley fell an hour ago. Not to the infected. To us. There was no outbreak inside the walls, but people started changing anyway. Some collapsed overnight. Some became violent. And some just walked out into the dark and never came back. The soldiers locked the gates. They called it containment. I call it something else, a cover. Up, we assumed the infected were the only ones changing. We were wrong. A woman at Camp Riley, one of the survivors, stopped sleeping for 4 days. She didn't close her eyes. And on the 5th, she spoke in a voice that wasn't hers. The last words from the station before the feed cut out. She's looking at us, but she isn't seeing us anymore. If you're still in a quarantine zone, leave. Don't wait for it to happen to you. Washington has been off the air for 72 hours. No official orders, no updates, nothing. In the last 3 hours, we lost Chicago, Denver, Phoenix, not to a text, to silence. No broadcasts, no distress calls. Just quiet. That's not how collapses work. There should be panic. There should be noise. Instead, there's nothing. And I don't know which is worse. There is no rescue coming. If you are hearing this, you are the last line of survival. Find others. Get out of the cities. Stop trusting what the world used to be. Because the world is something else now. And if we don't adapt, if we don't change, we won't be here to see what it becomes. This has been the final broadcast of this station. If you are out there, survive. Not just for yourself, but for what comes next.